They kept me waiting 54 years, 54 years with knowledge of what I did, 54 years burdened by that knowledge, 54 years watching other men accept the recognition they promised me while the Distinguished Service Cross languished in a drawer. They said the papers were lost. They said it was under consideration. They said to wait. On the 7th of May, 1970, I saved 12 men on Fire Support Base Maureen. In the year 2024, they finally recognized I was worthy of more than wait. More than wait. The truth. Now, before I get into what turned out to be the longest waiting period of my life, please take the time to subscribe to Military and Veterans Archives. We post stories like this every day of the week. Stories of sacrifice, stories of bravery, stories of being heard for the recognition that our veterans richly deserve. My name is James Carter. I'm 74 years old, living in a small house outside Columbus, Ohio. My hands shake sometimes, not from age, but from the weight of memories. And for more than half a century, I carried one memory heavier than all the others combined. I was 20 years old when they drafted me. Farm kid from rural Ohio. My dad worked the land his father worked, and his father before him. 3 generations of Carters turning the same soil, planting the same crops, living the same quiet life. I thought that's what I'd do too. Get married, have kids, die on that farm. The Army had different plans. August 1969, Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Basic training under a drill sergeant who made the Ohio heat feel like a gentle breeze. His name was Sanders, Staff Sergeant William Sanders. A man who could strip your ego down to nothing with 3 words and somehow make you grateful for the lesson. "You think you're tough, Carter?" he asked me on day 3 after I'd collapsed during morning PT. "You think working a farm makes you ready for war?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My lungs were screaming. "Farm work makes you strong," Sanders said, crouching next to me. "But war doesn't need strength. It needs discipline. It needs obedience. It needs you to keep moving when every muscle in your body is begging you to stop." He was right. By the end of basic, I could march 20 miles with a full pack. I could field strip an M16 blindfolded. I could follow orders without thinking, react without hesitating. Sanders had transformed a farm boy into a soldier, but he couldn't prepare me for Vietnam. January 19th, 1970. I stepped off that C-130 transport at Bien Hoa Air Base, and the heat hit me like opening an oven door. 110 degrees. Humidity so thick you could see it shimmer in the air. The smell was overwhelming. Jet fuel, burning trash, human waste, and underneath it all, something sweet and rotten that I'd later learn was decomposition. Fort Campbell had been hot. This was different. This was oppressive, suffocating, like breathing through a wet blanket. "Welcome to paradise," a sergeant said, handing me my assignment papers. He was maybe 25, but looked 40. Hollow eyes. 1,000-yard stare. "Company D, 1st of the 506th. Good unit. Lost their RTO last week. You're the replacement." My stomach dropped. "How did he die?" "Mortar attack. Antenna made him stand out. Remember that." I looked down at the radio pack I'd been issued. The antenna stuck up 3 feet above my head. I might as well paint a target on my back. They trucked us north to Camp Evans, then helicoptered into the Aishau Valley. The Huey ride was my first real taste of war. Door gunners scanning the tree line with their M60. Pilots flying nap of the earth to avoid ground fire. Every landing was a controlled crash. When we touched down at the company Firebase, Captain Reynolds was waiting. "Carter?" "Yes, sir." "You know how to work a radio?" "Yes, sir. Trained at Fort Polk." "Good. You know what happens to RTOs?" I hesitated. The sergeant at Bien Hoa had already answered that. "I've been told, sir." Reynolds looked me up and down. Morrison was a good kid, 18 years old, wanted to be a teacher, took a mortar fragment through the neck while calling in coordinates. He paused. You afraid to die, Carter? Yes, sir. Good. Fear keeps you alive. Use it. Don't let it use you. He turned and walked away. That was my welcome to Company D. The first 3 weeks were brutal. Not from combat, we hadn't made contact yet, but from the environment. The jungle was alive in ways that the Ohio woods never were. Everything bit, everything stung, everything rotted. Leeches in the water, mosquitoes thick as fog, ants that could strip your boot leather overnight, and the heat. God, the heat. I lost 15 pounds in the first month. Not from lack of food, though sea rations weren't exactly home cooking, but from sweating out every ounce of liquid I consumed. Dehydration was a constant battle. Heat exhaustion claimed more men than bullets those first weeks. But I adapted. Farm kids are tough. We know discomfort. We know hard work. What I didn't know was fear. Real fear. The kind that wakes you at 3 a.m. with your heart trying to punch through your ribs. That came on my first patrol. February 3rd, 1970. Standard recon patrol through the highlands near Firebase Ripcord. 12 men. Sergeant Miller on point. Private Chen carrying the M60. Me in the middle with my radio, trying to keep the antenna from snagging every branch. The jungle was dense, triple canopy. Sunlight barely penetrated. You couldn't see 10 feet in any direction. Every shadow could hide an enemy soldier. Every sound could be the last thing you heard. Miller raised his fist. We all froze. He pointed left. I saw it. Fresh-cut vegetation. Someone had moved through here recently. The cuts were clean, not natural. Military machetes, not natural growth. Captain Reynolds' voice crackled in my headset. India 2-6, this is actual. What's your status? I keyed the handset, keeping my voice low. Actual. We've got sign. Recent trail, maybe 6 hours old. Can you follow it? Miller shook his head violently. Following an enemy trail was suicide. They'd be waiting, watching, probably had claymores set up. Negative, actual. Trail leads into heavy cover. Recommend we sweep around. Roger, proceed with caution. Report any further contact. We moved west, giving the trail a wide berth. My hands were slick with sweat on the radio handset. Every step felt like walking through a minefield. The jungle was absolutely silent now. Even the insects had stopped buzzing. That's never a good sign. The first shot cracked out without warning. The sound was sharp, close, too close. A round snapped past my head so close I felt the pressure wave. The air itself seemed to split. Private Davis screamed and dropped. Blood blossomed on his thigh, spreading fast. Arterial hit. Contact left, Miller yelled, already returning fire. The jungle erupted. Muzzle flashes lit up the shadows like strobes. Green tracer rounds, NVA, not VC, streaked through the foliage. Bark exploded off trees. Leaves shredded in the crossfire. The smell of gunpowder filled the air, thick and acrid. I hit the ground so hard it knocked the wind out of me. The radio slammed into my back. I could feel every corner of the battery pack digging into my spine. My M16 was somewhere. Where? There. 3 feet away, half buried in leaves. I crawled toward it, bullets kicking up dirt inches from my face. India 2-6, contact! Contact! I screamed into the handset. Grid coordinates 573-218. Enemy force, small arms fire, at least squad-sized element. Requesting immediate fire support. Captain Reynolds' voice came back unnervingly calm, professional. Roger, 2-6. Artillery is standing by. Give me a direction and distance from your position. Direction? Distance? I could barely think. The noise was deafening. Davis was still screaming, hands pressed against his leg. Chen had opened up with the M60, long, devastating bursts that made my ears ring even through the chaos. Hot brass was raining down around me. Northwest, 100 meters. I didn't know if that was accurate. Couldn't be sure. Close enough had to be good enough. Shot out, Reynolds said. 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes. Then the first artillery round screamed overhead and exploded in the jungle. Too close. Way too close. The blast wave hit us like a wall. Dirt and shrapnel rained down. Something hot grazed my cheek. Add 50! Miller yelled between bursts. I related, hands shaking. The next round landed farther out. Better. The enemy fire slackened noticeably. Fire for effect, Miller ordered. 6 rounds, one after another. The ground shook with each impact. Trees splintered. The earth itself seemed to convulse. When the dust finally settled, the jungle was eerily silent. All clear, Miller said quietly, voice hoarse. Perkins, Stewart, check the wounded. Carter, get a medevac bird inbound. Now. I keyed the handset, trying to keep my voice steady. Dust off, dust off. This is India 2-6. We have 1 urgent surgical arterial bleed. Request immediate extraction. Grid 573. 218. Roger, 2-6. Dust off is inbound. ETA 10 minutes. Mark your LZ with smoke. I pulled a smoke grenade from my belt. Purple smoke, the day's identification color. Popped it and threw it into a small clearing 20 meters away. 10 minutes. Davis had to hold on for 10 minutes. Doc Williams was already working on him, hands moving with practiced efficiency. Tourniquet above the wound, pressure bandage. IV line going in. The medic worked like a machine, no wasted motion. He's stable, Doc said, but he needs a hospital. That round nicked the femoral. If I hadn't gotten here when I did, he didn't finish. Didn't need to. We all knew. The Huey dropped through the canopy like an angel. Door gunners scanned the tree line, fingers on triggers. They didn't shut down, just hovered low enough for us to load Davis. The medic on board gave Doc a thumbs up as they lifted off. Davis would make it. My first firefight. Maybe 3 minutes of actual combat that felt like 3 hours. 1 man wounded but alive. Could have been so much worse. Miller gathered us up. Good work, good fire discipline. Carter, that artillery was danger close, but you made the call. Saved Davis's life. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. My hands were still shaking. That night, back at the Firebase, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that first muzzle flash. Heard Davis screaming. Felt bullets cracking past. This was war, not training, not exercises, real bullets, real blood, real consequence. And it would only get worse. The patrols continued. Some days quiet, some days deadly. I learned to read the signs. When the birds went silent, when the air felt heavy, when Sergeant Miller's shoulders tensed just before he called a halt. I learned to sleep through mortar attacks, the distant thump of the tubes launching, the whistle of incoming rounds, the explosion. If you weren't hit in the first 3 seconds, you probably weren't going to be. Roll over, go back to sleep. I learned which sea rations were edible. Ham and lima beans, ham and mothers we called them, went straight in the trash. Spaghetti and meatballs were gold. We'd trade cigarettes for them. I learned to change the battery on my radio without looking, to keep the handset dry during monsoon rains, to tape down anything that rattled. Noise discipline saved lives, but most importantly, I learned about the men around me. Private Chen, Thomas Chen, from San Francisco, only child. Parents ran a restaurant in Chinatown. He carried their photograph in his helmet, showed it to everyone, Talked about going home and learning the family business. When this is over, he'd say. Always when, never if. Doc Williams, real name Kenneth Williams, medic from Georgia. Quiet guy. Didn't talk much except about medical stuff. But when someone got hit, he transformed. Calm under fire. Hands steady even when bullets were snapping overhead. He'd already saved 3 lives by the time I met him. Sergeant Miller. Career Army, lifer. 2 tours in Vietnam already, heading for his 3rd. Never talked about why he kept coming back. But I think I knew. Out here, he had purpose. Back in the States, what was he? Just another veteran nobody understood. These men became my family. Closer than brothers. When you trust someone to watch your back while you sleep, to pull you out of the line of fire, to lie to save your life, that bond goes deeper than blood. By April, I'd been in country 3 months. I'd seen 5 men wounded, 2 killed. I'd called in more artillery missions than I could count. I'd learned to move through the jungle like a ghost, radio and all. And then came Firebase Maureen, May 5th, 1970. We got the orders at 0800 hours. Company D would helicopter into an abandoned firebase called Maureen, secure the position, and hold it for 72 hours while artillery moved into position. "Why is it abandoned?" I asked Sergeant Miller. He looked at me like I was an idiot, because the last unit got torn apart trying to hold it. Firebase Maureen sits on top of Hill 937. The NVA want it bad. Strategic value. Overlooks 2 major supply routes. My stomach churned. How many casualties? Last unit, 40%. Lost the firebase and pulled back 3 months ago. Now we're going back in. Great. We loaded onto Hueys at dawn on May 6th. 6 birds, 60 men, flying low through valleys to avoid radar. The door gunners had their fingers on the triggers the whole flight. Every tree line could hide anti-aircraft guns. When Hill 937 came into view, I understood why they called it Firebase Maureen. The hilltop had been carved flat, probably bulldozed months earlier, and ringed with bunkers and fighting positions. But 3 months of abandonment had taken their toll. The bunkers were collapsed. Sandbags had rotted and burst. The perimeter wire was more rust than metal. And everywhere, were signs of the battle that drove out the last unit. Shrapnel scars, blast craters, shell casings thick as gravel. "This place is a death trap," Private Davis said, looking around. Sergeant Miller slapped the back of his helmet. "Then fix it instead of whining." We spent all day May 6th rebuilding defenses, filling new sandbags, backbreaking work in the heat, repairing bunkers, stringing new concertina wire, clearing fields of fire, setting up mortar pits and machine gun positions. Captain Reynolds walked the perimeter 3 times. Each time he looked more concerned. "This position is indefensible," Lieutenant Hayes said during the afternoon briefing. 3 approaches. No mutual support between positions. If they hit us hard, we're screwed. "We're not here to win," Reynolds said quietly. "We're here to hold long enough for the artillery to get into position. 3 days, that's all. And if they attack before then we make them pay for every inch." That night, May 6th going into May 7th, I sat in the command bunker monitoring radio traffic. Everything was quiet, too quiet. The usual jungle sounds, insects, birds, monkeys, had faded to nothing. At 0100 hours, I mentioned it to Lieutenant Hayes. "Birds aren't singing," I said. He listened. "You're right. That's not good." Captain Reynolds was already reaching for his rifle. "Wake everyone up. Full alert. Now." I grabbed the handset. "All positions. This is actual. Stand to. Repeat. Stand to. Full alert status." The firebase came alive. Men scrambling out of sleeping bags, grabbing weapons, moving to fighting positions. The usual bitching and complaining died when they heard the silence. Everyone knew what it meant. We waited. 0200. Nothing. 0230. Still nothing. At 02:45, the first mortar round exploded. It hit the northern perimeter, 50 meters from my position. The explosion was blinding, deafening. The ground shook. Dirt rained down. Then another, closer, then another. They were walking mortars up the hillside toward our position. Classic NVA tactic, soften the defenses before the ground assault. "Incoming!" someone screamed. Pointless. Everyone could hear them. I crouched in the command bunker, hands over my head, as explosions rocked the world. 1, 2, 3, 4. The bunker walls shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. My ears were ringing so loud I could barely think. Captain Reynolds was yelling into his own radio. Fire mission! Enemy mortars, grid coordinates!" The bunker took a direct hit. I don't remember the explosion. 1 second I was crouched next to the radio. The next second I was on my back, ears screaming, vision blurred, smoke everywhere, the smell of high explosives and burning wood. "Hayes!" Reynolds was screaming. "Lieutenant Hayes!" I rolled over, saw him. Lieutenant Hayes was against the bunker wall. His eyes were open, but seeing nothing. Blood everywhere. The mortar had torn through the roof and caught him full force. 23 years old, from Nebraska, engaged to be married, dead. I couldn't process it, couldn't think. The radio was squawking, but I couldn't hear it over the ringing in my ears. Reynolds grabbed my shoulder, shook me. "Carter, get on that radio. We need support now." My hands found the handset. Dust off! This is India 2-6. We have mass casualties. Request immediate..." The response cut me off. "India 2-6, negative on medevac. Enemy fire too heavy. Birds can't land. You need to suppress that fire." "Can't suppress," I said. "We're under attack ourselves." "Then make it safe or your wounded die. Dust off out." The mortar fire stopped. Sudden silence except for the ringing in my ears and men screaming. Then I heard it. Small arms fire. Lots of it. Rattling like 1,000 typewriters. The ground assault had started. Reynolds was at the bunker entrance, firing his M16 in controlled bursts. "They're coming from 3 sides, north, east, and west. Where's Miller?" "Northern bunker," someone yelled back. "Tell him to hold. Tell everyone to hold." I grabbed my radio. "All positions, this is actual. Do not fall back. Repeat, do not fall back. Hold your ground." But the northern bunker was getting hammered. I could see green tracer rounds, NVA, converging on that position. They knew what they were doing. Take out the strongest point first. That's when I heard Chen's M60 go silent. The M60 had been our biggest gun, heaviest firepower. With that gun silent, the northern perimeter was vulnerable. "Chen's down!" someone screamed over the radio. Reynolds cursed. "Carter, get on that gun, now!" "I'm your RTO. I don't need an RTO if we're all dead. Move." I handed him my radio handset and grabbed my M16, ran out of the command bunker into hell. The night was lit up like daylight, muzzle flashes everywhere. Tracer rounds crossing overhead like deadly fireflies, explosions, screaming, the smell of cordite and blood. I ran toward Chen's position, 50 meters, felt like 5 miles. Bullets cracked past my head, one tugged at my sleeve, another hit the ground 2 inches from my boot, dove into the bunker. Chen was there, alive but bleeding, chest wound, bad. His hands were pressed against it, trying to stop the flow. The M60 lay next to him, silent. "Can't breathe," he gasped. "Doc!" I screamed into the darkness. "Need a medic at North Bunker." No response. Doc was busy somewhere else. Everyone was busy. I grabbed the M60, 23 pounds of steel and death. The barrel was still hot from Chen's firing. Ammunition belt hung limp. I slapped in a fresh belt, charged the weapon, swung it toward the tree line. The NVA were advancing in waves. Professional soldiers, not guerrillas. They moved with discipline, fire and maneuver. One element shoots while the other moves, then switch, getting closer with each bound. I opened up. The M60 roared, burst fire, 5 rounds, traverse, 5 more. Walk it across the tree line. The gun bucked against my shoulder. Hot brass cascaded down. Tracer rounds lit up the night. Enemy soldiers dove for cover. Good. That bought us time. "Hey!" I screamed toward them. "Over here! Come get me!" Stupid. Suicidal. But it worked. They shifted their fire toward my position. Bullets hammered the sandbags. Dirt exploded. A round grazed my left arm. Burning pain, but superficial. I barely felt it. Adrenaline is a hell of a drug. Behind me I heard boots running. Doc Williams slid into the bunker, medical bag bouncing. "Chen!" he yelled, already moving toward the wounded man. "Sucking chest wound," I called back, still firing. "Needs evac now!" "Can't evac," Doc said. "Bird won't land, too hot." "Then make it cold," I yelled. He understood. While he worked on Chen, I laid down fire, kept the NVA heads down, gave Doc the seconds he needed to stabilize our friend. My ammunition belt ran dry. Click. Empty. I dropped the M60, grabbed my M16, kept shooting, magazine after magazine. When those ran out, I grabbed grenades from Chen's kit, started lobbing them toward the tree line. 1, 2, 3. Each explosion bought precious seconds. Doc dragged Chen toward the rear of the bunker. "He's stable, but he needs a hospital. Carter, we have to get these wounded out." I looked around. Chen wasn't the only casualty. I could see at least 6 more wounded men scattered across our perimeter, all in the open, all exposed to enemy fire. If we didn't get them to cover, they'd die. "I'll draw fire," I said. "You get them to safety." "That's suicide. Got a better idea?" He didn't. I grabbed a fresh ammunition belt for the M60, slapped it in, charged the weapon, stood up, completely exposed, and opened fire. "Over here!" I screamed at the enemy. "I'm right here. Shoot me!" They did. Bullets tore through the sandbags around me. One grazed my helmet. Another hit my flak jacket but didn't penetrate. A third went through my right pant leg, clean through, didn't touch skin. Luck. Pure, dumb luck. But it worked. Every enemy gun that could see me opened fire on my position, which meant they weren't shooting at Doc Williams. I watched him drag Martinez to safety. Then Johnson, then Davis, one by one, using my suppressive fire as cover. My shoulder ached from the M60's recoil. My ears had gone beyond ringing to a dull roar. I could taste blood, had bitten through my lip without realizing it. The ammunition belt ran dry again. No more M60. I switched to my M16, last magazine, 20 rounds. Make them count. That's when I felt it. My right leg. Warm. Wet. I looked down. Blood pooling in my boot. When had that happened? Didn't matter. Shrapnel, probably. During one of the explosions. The adrenaline had masked the pain. Until now. My leg buckled. I grabbed the sandbag wall to stay upright. The world started spinning. Blood loss. Shock. My vision narrowed to a tunnel. Captain Reynolds was suddenly there, grabbing my shoulders. "Carter, you stupid son of a bitch, I ordered you back." "Had to. Draw fire," I managed. "Medevac. Needed time." He stared at me for a second, then keyed his radio. "Dust off, this is India 2-6 actual. LZ is cooling. Repeat, LZ is cooling. Can you extract?" Static. Then, "Roger, 2-6. Inbound now. ETA 2 minutes." I heard it before I saw it. The distinctive whop, whop, whop of Huey rotors, the most beautiful sound in the world. The helicopter came in fast and low, door gunners laying down suppressive fire. The skids barely touched ground before Doc Williams and others rushed casualties aboard. Chen, Martinez, Johnson, Davis, 3 more whose names I can't remember. 11 wounded men loaded in 30 seconds. "You too!" Reynolds shouted at me. "Get on that bird." "I can still fight." "You can barely stand. Move." He was right. My leg had gone numb. I couldn't feel my right foot. Two soldiers grabbed me under the arms and half carried, half dragged me to the helicopter. As we lifted off, I looked down at Firebase Maureen. Our defensive line was holding, barely. The NVA were falling back. We'd survived. 12 men got on that medevac. 12 men who would have died without covering fire. 12 families who would see their sons again. That's all that mattered. The helicopter banked hard. G-forces pressed me into the metal floor. Someone was shouting in my ear, but I couldn't hear over the rotors. My vision was getting blurry. Dark edges creeping in. The last thing I remember before passing out was Chen next to me, medic working on his chest, still breathing, still alive. I'd done it. I woke up 3 days later in Valley Forge General Hospital, Pennsylvania. The room was white, clean, quiet. Such a stark contrast to Vietnam that for a moment I thought I was dreaming. No gunfire, no explosions, no screaming. Just the gentle beep of a heart monitor and the soft shuffle of nurses' footsteps in the corridor. Then, the pain hit. My right leg felt like it was being torn apart from the inside. A nurse appeared, early 30s, kind eyes that had probably seen too many wounded soldiers. "Welcome back, Specialist Carter. You've been out for 62 hours. How do you feel?" "Like I got hit by a truck," I managed. She smiled gently. "Close. Shrapnel from a mortar round. Tore through your right calf muscle. Missed the bone by less than an inch. The surgeons say you're very lucky." Lucky. I'd heard that word before. It never felt quite right. "The others?" I asked, voice hoarse. "The men who came in with me?" She checked her clipboard. "All survived. Private Chen is still in ICU, but stable. His chest wound was serious, but the field medic's work saved his life. The other casualties are recovering well. You all made it." Relief flooded through me so powerfully I thought I might pass out again. They made it. All 12 of them. That's all that mattered. The doctor came in an hour later. Colonel, surprisingly. Medical Corps. Probably pushed into active duty because they needed experienced surgeons. "Specialist Carter," he said, examining my leg. "You took approximately 47 pieces of shrapnel. We removed 39. The other 8 were too deep, too close to major blood vessels. They'll stay with you for life." "Will I walk again, sir?" "With physical therapy, yes, but it'll be a long road. The muscle damage was extensive. You'll likely have a permanent limp, chronic pain, but you'll walk. Better than the alternative." Over the next 2 months, I learned what pain really meant. Physical therapy started 3 weeks after surgery. My therapist was a former Marine gunnery sergeant named Rodriguez, graying hair, scarred hands. He'd lost his own left leg below the knee in Korea and wore a prosthetic with the casual indifference of someone who'd learned to live with it. "Pain is weakness leaving the body, Carter," he'd say, making me do another repetition. I wanted to punch him, but he was right. The first week was torture. Simple exercises, flexing my foot, rotating my ankle, felt like someone was driving nails through my calf. I'd sweat through my hospital gown, bite through my lip to keep from screaming. "Good," Rodriguez would say. "That means the nerves are still working. Pain is information. Listen to it, but don't let it control you." Week 2, I graduated to standing exercises, putting weight on the leg. My first attempt, I lasted 8 seconds before my knee buckled. Rodriguez caught me before I hit the floor. "Longer next time," he said simply. By week 4, I could walk with crutches, slow, painful, but walking. Chen got moved to my ward after his ICU stint. We'd sit together in the rec room, not talking much. Didn't need to. We both knew what we'd survived, what we'd done. The bond between men who face death together doesn't need words. "I got a letter from my parents," Chen told me one afternoon. "They're flying out next month to take me home, medical discharge." "You going to work at the restaurant?" "Yeah. Learn the family business." My father wants me to take over when he retires. Get married, have kids, live the life I almost didn't get to live." He paused, looking at me. "Thanks to you. You'd have done the same." "Maybe. But you did it first. That's what matters." In June, I got my first unassisted steps. No crutches, no cane, just me and my rebuilt leg. I made it 7 steps before the pain forced me to stop. Rodriguez grinned. 8 tomorrow. He was right. One afternoon in mid-July, I'd been at Valley Forge almost 2 months, a colonel walked into my room. I didn't recognize him. Silver eagle on his collar, chest covered in ribbons, combat infantryman badge, bronze star with V device. This was a man who'd seen war. "Specialist Carter," he said formally. "I'm Colonel Thomas Harrison, Army Personnel Command. I have something for you." He opened a small wooden presentation box. Inside, nestled in blue velvet, was a medal. Red, white, and blue ribbon with white stars. Bronze cross with an eagle in the center, wings spread. The Distinguished Service Cross. Second highest military decoration in the United States Armed Forces. Only the Medal of Honor ranked higher. "On behalf of a grateful nation and the United States Army," Colonel Harrison said, his voice carrying the weight of ceremony, "I present you with the Distinguished Service Cross for extraordinary heroism in combat operations. Your actions on May 7, 1970, at Firebase Maureen, Republic of Vietnam, saved the lives of 12 soldiers. You deliberately drew enemy fire while severely wounded, enabling medical evacuation under impossible conditions. Such selfless valor represents the highest traditions of military service." He pinned the medal to my hospital gown, then stepped back and saluted. I returned the salute from my wheelchair, hand trembling. "There's more, Specialist," Harrison continued, his tone shifting to something more personal. "Your commanding officer, Captain Reynolds, has submitted formal paperwork recommending you for upgrade to the Medal of Honor. I've personally reviewed the witness statements. 8 separate soldiers have provided detailed accounts corroborating your actions. Dr. Williams' medical report describes how you maintained suppressive fire for approximately 8 minutes while bleeding from multiple wounds. That's exceptional, Carter. Based on the evidence, you have an extremely strong case for the Medal of Honor. Expect notification within 6 months. Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration, presented for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty. Names like Alvin York, Audie Murphy, legends. Sir, I just did my job. No, Specialist, Harrison said firmly. Your job was radio operator. You chose to become a machine gunner. You chose to draw fire. You chose to keep fighting while wounded when you could have taken cover. That's not doing your job. That's being a hero. The Medal of Honor recognizes such extraordinary acts. You've earned it. He saluted again, sharper this time. I'll be in touch. After he left, I sat there looking at the Distinguished Service Cross. The medal was heavy, substantial, beautiful. But the Medal of Honor, that was different. That was recognition at the highest level. That was history. 6 months, the colonel said. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? Official statement from a colonel. Captain's recommendation. 8 witness statements, medical documentation. The system worked, didn't it? December 1970. I got my discharge papers. Honorable, Specialist 4th Class, 1 Distinguished Service Cross, 1 Purple Heart, 1 Combat Infantry Badge. No Medal of Honor yet. But it was coming. The colonel said 6 months. That would be January 1971. I flew home to Ohio. Dad picked me up at the airport. He didn't say much, never did, but he hugged me hard. Harder than he'd ever hugged me before. Mom cried, She tried to hide it, but I saw. Moms always cry when their sons come home from war. Life in rural Ohio was exactly as I'd left it. The farm, the neighbors, the local diner where everyone knew everyone. But I'd changed. I was different now. The nightmares started the first week. I'd wake up screaming, covered in sweat, convinced I was back at Firebase Maureen with mortars raining down. Mom would call through my bedroom door asking if I was okay. I'd lie and say yes. After the third time I almost hurt her, grabbed her arm when she touched me to wake me up, left bruises. She stopped coming upstairs. She'd just call through the door, make sure I was breathing, then leave. I hated myself for that. The VA clinic in Warren helped. That's where I met other veterans, guys who understood the nightmares, the hypervigilance, the guilt of surviving when others didn't. That's where I found the Disabled American Veterans Organization. Chapter 11. They helped me file for disability benefits, helped me understand that what I was experiencing, they called it post-traumatic stress, was normal. Well, normal for combat veterans. I started volunteering, helping other vets navigate the system, found purpose in service again. But every month, I checked the mail for the Medal of Honor notification, January 1971. Nothing. February, nothing. March, nothing. In April, I called the Army Personnel Center. I'm inquiring about a Medal of Honor recommendation, I said, for Specialist James Carter, submitted by Captain Reynolds, Company D, 1st of the 506th, May 1970. The clerk put me on hold. 10 minutes later, "Sir, I don't see any record of that recommendation." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. Colonel Harrison told me it was submitted." "Let me check with awards and decorations." Another hold, another 10 minutes. "Sir, our records show you received the Distinguished Service Cross for actions at Firebase Maureen. No Medal of Honor recommendation on file. Can you check again? Maybe it's filed under Captain Reynolds' name?" "One moment." Longer hold this time. "I'm sorry, sir, nothing under that name either." I hung up. Sat there staring at the phone. Lost paperwork. Had to be. The Army was famous for losing things. My own personnel file had been misplaced twice during training. I wrote a letter. Formal request to locate the Medal of Honor recommendation, included copies of my Distinguished Service Cross citation, Captain Reynolds' contact information, names of the 8 soldiers who'd witnessed what happened. Response came 3 months later. "Your inquiry is under review." 1975, 5 years since Firebase Maureen. I'd gotten a job at a manufacturing plant, married a good woman named Linda. We had a son, James Jr. Life was moving forward, but I hadn't forgotten. I wrote to the Personnel Center again, requesting status update on Medal of Honor recommendation. Response: "Matter remains under review. Please be patient." 1980, 10 years, second son born, Robert, named after my father. The nightmares had gotten better. Not gone, but manageable. I wrote again. Same request. Response: "Records from that period may have been lost in a fire at the National Personnel Records Center in St. Louis. We're working to reconstruct them." The St. Louis fire, 1973, destroyed millions of military personnel records. Convenient excuse. But I had documentation. My Distinguished Service Cross citation proved I was at Firebase Maureen. Proved what I'd done. Surely that was enough? 1985. 15 years. Captain Reynolds died in a car accident. I went to his funeral. His widow pulled me aside. "Tom talked about you," she said, "about Firebase Maureen. He always said you deserved the Medal of Honor. He submitted the paperwork himself." "I know," I said. "They lost it." She looked angry. "They didn't lose it. They ignored it. Do you know how many times Tom called the Pentagon? How many letters he wrote? He spent 5 years fighting for your recognition. They just stopped responding." That hurt worse than any wound. Reynolds had fought for me for 5 years, and the system had defeated him. 1990, 20 years. Linda died. Cancer. I raised the boys alone. James Jr. joined the Army, said he wanted to serve like his dad. I was proud and terrified. I wrote to the Personnel Center one more time. Response: please continue to be patient. Your case is being reviewed. 20 years of patience. How much more did they want? That's when I stopped asking. What was the point? The paperwork was gone. Reynolds was dead. The witnesses had scattered to the wind. Nobody remembered Firebase Maureen except me. And I remembered it every single day. I watched Medal of Honor ceremonies on TV, read about recipients in the news, men and women who'd shown extraordinary valor. I was happy for them. They deserved it. But in the quiet moments, in the dark hours of the night when the nightmares came back, I couldn't help thinking, what about me? I wasn't bitter. Not really. Those 12 men had survived. Chen became a surgeon. Martinez bought a house, raised 3 kids. Johnson became a teacher. They lived full lives because I'd bought them time. That should be enough. But deep down, in a place I didn't like to examine too closely, there was a small voice that whispered, "You deserved more." And for 54 years, I learned to ignore that voice until I couldn't anymore. 2023. I was 73 years old. My hands shook more now, not just from memories. Arthritis and old wounds don't age well. I'd retired from the manufacturing plant 10 years earlier. Linda had died in 2000. The boys were grown. James Jr. had done 20 years in the Army, retired as a sergeant major. Robert was a teacher. Both had families of their own. I still volunteered at DA Chapter 11, still helped veterans navigate the VA system. It gave me purpose. One Tuesday evening in March, a young man walked into our chapter meeting. Late 20s, walking with a prosthetic leg. Iraq War veteran, I'd learn later. His name was Marcus Torres. He needed help with VA benefits. The system had denied his disability claim twice. Standard bureaucratic nonsense. I helped him file an appeal, showed him the right forms, explained the process. We grabbed coffee afterward at a diner down the street. "Thank you," Marcus said. "I've been fighting them for 2 years. Nobody else would help." "That's what we're here for," I told him. "Veterans helping veterans." We talked. He told me about Fallujah, about the IED that took his leg, about coming home to a country that had moved on from his war. I told him about Vietnam, about Firebase Maureen. "That's incredible," he said. "You got the Medal of Honor for that, right?" "Distinguished Service Cross." He frowned. "That sounds like Medal of Honor level stuff to me. Drawing fire while wounded, saving 12 lives. Did you apply?" "The Army recommended it. Never came through." Marcus pulled out his phone, started typing. "You know there's a process for reviewing old awards? Congress passed a law in 2015. If there's evidence that someone should have received a higher medal but didn't due to discrimination or administrative error, they can reopen the case." My heart jumped. "Seriously?" "Dead serious. There's a veteran advocate I know, former Army lawyer. She specializes in this exact thing. Her name's Sarah Kim. Want me to connect you?" 3 weeks later, I sat in Sarah Kim's office in Cleveland. She was maybe late 30s, sharp eyes, professional. Her desk was covered with case files, other veterans fighting similar battles. "Mr. Carter," she said, "your case is exactly what I look for. Clear evidence of extraordinary valor. Official recommendation from your commanding officer, multiple witnesses, and then nothing. The paperwork just disappeared." "Can you fix it?" I asked. "I can try, but I need your help. I need you to find anyone who was there that day, anyone who remembers. Even after 50 years, witness testimony carries enormous weight." Finding them seemed impossible. 53 years. Most of them probably didn't even remember me. But Sarah was persistent. She started with my Distinguished Service Cross citation. Pulled the names of everyone in Company D, started tracking them down through VA databases, veterans organizations, social media. It took 6 months. August 2023. Sarah called me. I found Thomas Chen. My breath caught. Chen? Alive? Dr. Thomas Chen, retired surgeon in San Diego. I sent him an email explaining who we are and why we're reaching out. He responded within an hour. She forwarded me his email. I read it 3 times. James Carter saved my life. I was 20 years old, lying in that bunker with a sucking chest wound, convinced I was dying. Carter manned the M60 machine gun while Doc Williams worked on me. He drew enemy fire, deliberately drew it, so we could be evacuated. I owe him everything. My career, my family, my life. Whatever you need from me, I'll provide it. I cried. First time I'd cried in years. Chen and I talked on the phone that night. 53 years since Firebase Maureen. His voice was older, but I recognized it immediately. Carter, he said. Man, I can't believe we're talking. I didn't think you'd remember me. Are you kidding? I think about that night every year on May 7th. My daughter was born on May 8th, 1982, 12 years to the day after you saved my life. I named her middle name Grace, because that's what you gave me. Grace. Another chance. We talked for 2 hours, about Vietnam, about life after, about the weight we'd both carried. I'll write whatever statement you need, Chen said. Testify wherever you want. You deserve that Medal of Honor. Sarah found Doc Williams next, Reverend Kenneth Williams in Atlanta, retired from ministry at 75, but still sharp as ever. I remember everything, Williams told me over the phone. I was pulling wounded men to safety while you laid down suppressive fire. You were screaming at the enemy, drawing their attention. I've never seen anything like it. Pure courage. Then came Private Martinez. Manuel Martinez, living in Texas, owned a construction company. You saved me, he said simply. I was hit in the abdomen, bleeding out in the open. Williams dragged me to safety while you kept the NVA busy. My wife and I just celebrated our 40th anniversary. My 3 kids have given me 7 grandchildren. That's your legacy, Carter. Not just saving my life, saving all the life that came after. Corporal Johnson. David Johnson. Retired teacher in Oregon. I tell my students about you, he said, about what real heroism looks like. Not Hollywood, not glory, just a man doing the impossible because others needed him to. One by one, Sarah found them. 8 witnesses total. 8 men who remembered Firebase Maureen, who remembered what I'd done. Each one wrote a detailed statement, signed, notarized, official. Sarah compiled everything into a comprehensive package. Medal upgrade request. Original, Distinguished Service Cross citation. Battle reports from May 7th, 1970. Medical records proving my wounds. And 8 witness statements that all told the same story. This is the strongest case I've ever seen, Sarah said in December 2023. But the Army moves slowly, could take a year, maybe 2. I've waited 54, I said. What's a little more? She submitted the package to the Army Awards and Decorations Branch on December 15th, 2023. Then we waited. April 23rd, 2024. I was in my garage working on an old lawnmower when my phone rang. Unknown number. Virginia area code. Mr. Carter, this is Colonel Anderson from the Army Awards and Decorations Branch. Do you have a moment? My hands started shaking. Yes, sir. I'm calling regarding your Medal of Honor upgrade request. After extensive review of your case, including witness statements, battle reports, medical documentation, and historical records, the Army has determined that your actions on May 7th, 1970 meet the criteria for the Medal of Honor. I couldn't speak. Throat too tight. The Secretary of Defense has approved the upgrade. The President has been briefed and will present the medal personally at a White House ceremony. Tentative date is early January 2025. We'll send official notification within 2 weeks. "Sir," I managed, "is this real?" "Yes, Mr. Carter, it's real, and it's long overdue. I've read your file. I've read the witness statements. What you did that night was extraordinary. You should have received this recognition 54 years ago. On behalf of the United States Army, I apologize for the delay, and I thank you for your patience." After I hung up, I sat in my garage for an hour. Just sat there, staring at my hands. Hands that had manned that M60, that had thrown grenades, that had bled in Vietnam. 54 years. I called James Jr. first, then Robert, then Sarah Kim. Sarah was ecstatic. "You did it? We did it. Justice, finally." "Thank you," I said, "for believing me, for fighting when I'd given up." "You never gave up," she said. "You just stopped asking. There's a difference." Chen called that evening. Sarah had already told him. "Congratulations," he said. "God, this feels good. This feels right. You going to come to the ceremony?" "Try and stop me." January 3rd, 2025. The White House. They flew me to Washington 2 days earlier, put me in a nice hotel, gave me a new dress uniform. The old one from 1970 didn't fit anymore. 74-year-old bodies change. My family came. James Jr. and his wife and kids, Robert and his family, 16 people total. 3 generations of Carters. Chen flew in from San Diego, Williams from Atlanta, Martinez from Texas, Johnson from Oregon. 4 of the 8 witnesses. The other 4 couldn't make it. Age, health, distance, but they sent messages. The morning of the ceremony, I stood in my hotel room, looking at myself in the mirror. Dress uniform with all my ribbons, the Distinguished Service Cross, the Purple Heart, the Combat Infantry Badge. Soon, the Medal of Honor would join them. James Jr. knocked on my door. "Ready, Dad?" "Yeah, let's go." The White House, the East Room, gold curtains, crystal chandeliers, American flags, rows of chairs filled with dignitaries, military brass, veterans, my family. I stood at attention next to President Biden. My hands shook. Not from nerves, from relief, from vindication, from the weight of 54 years finally lifting. The president read my citation. Private First Class James Carter distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty on May 7, 1970, while serving as a radio telephone operator with Company D, 1st Battalion, 506th Infantry, 101st Airborne Division, near Fire Support Base, Maureen, Thu Thien Province, Republic of Vietnam. He described the battle, my decision to man the M60, drawing enemy fire while wounded, enabling the medevac extraction that saved 12 lives. His extraordinary heroism and selflessness, Biden concluded, reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. He lifted the Medal of Honor, blue ribbon with 13 white stars, gold star medallion, the weight of history. He placed it around my neck. The room erupted in applause. I saluted the president. He saluted back. Then he pulled me into a handshake that became a hug. "Welcome home, soldier," he whispered. "You earned this 50 years ago. I'm just sorry it took so long." I couldn't speak, just nodded. The ceremony continued. Formal speeches, recognition, photos, but all I could feel was the medal against my chest, the weight I'd waited 54 years to carry. Afterward, in a private room, Chen found me. We hugged, both crying. "You saved my life," he said. "I got to become a doctor, got to save other lives, got to watch my daughter Grace grow up, get married, have kids of her own. Because of you. That's all that mattered," I told him. "The medal is just decoration." "No," he said firmly. "This is justice, truth, recognition. You deserve this. You always deserve this. Williams was there. Martinez, Johnson, the men I'd saved, older now, gray hair, wrinkled faces, but alive. Because 54 years ago, a 20-year-old farm kid from Ohio decided to draw enemy fire to give them a chance. The medal sits on my dresser now. I look at it every morning. Not because I need validation, not because I crave recognition, but because it represents something bigger than me. It represents every veteran who did extraordinary things and got forgotten. Every soldier who followed orders, showed courage, sacrificed everything, and disappeared into history. Every warrior who carried the weight of service silently, waiting for someone to notice. For 54 years, I was one of those invisible veterans. The system failed me. Paperwork got lost. Bureaucracy moved slowly. People forgot. But the truth never dies. It just waits. Sarah Kim proved that. Chen proved that. All 8 witnesses proved that. The truth waited 54 years, and when the right people finally listened, it won. The Distinguished Service Cross was never wrong. It's an incredible honor, second highest military decoration. I was proud to receive it. But I deserved more. The witnesses knew it. Captain Reynolds knew it. The Army knew it. And now, finally, the nation knows it too. 54 years. 54 years of carrying unacknowledged valor. 54 years of silence, broken by 8 witness statements and 1 determined lawyer. Was it worth the wait? Ask Dr. Chen. Ask his daughter Grace. Ask Martinez's 7 grandchildren. Ask Johnson's students. Ask the families of the 12 men who came home from Firebase Maureen because I bought them time. They'll tell you yes. And now, with this medal around my neck, I can finally say yes too. Not because I needed validation, but because the truth, the full, complete, undeniable truth, deserved to be told. How long would you wait for justice? 54 years is more than half a century. More than most people's entire careers. Would you have given up? Accepted the Distinguished Service Cross and moved on? Or would you have kept fighting, kept hoping, kept believing that eventually someone would see the truth? Because that's what this story is really about. Not just medals, not just military valor, but patience. The strength to carry unacknowledged truth, the faith to believe that eventually the right people will listen. If this story moved you, if it made you think about veterans who might have untold stories of courage, hit that like button and subscribe to Military and Veterans Archives. We bring you stories like this every single day. Stories that deserve to be heard. Truths that deserve acknowledgement. Veterans who deserve honor. Real stories, real courage, real justice, even if it takes 54 years. Until then, remember, justice delayed is not justice denied. Sometimes it's just justice waiting for its moment.